And there we go. We are back. All right. I want to talk about improving your coding skills. I know this is going to be one of those. It's going to be sort of a challenge, but I think everybody needs to do it. I want to grab a site real quick to make sure I'm actually looking at the right site when I do this. That is not it. Um, is that the one? Yes, it is. Let's see. Is there a pricing on this while I'm sitting there? There we go. Okay. So let's talk about, I think that's what it's going to be, and it'll be and this one actually I started for myself to build a habit a while back, was to spend just like I put on my schedule 15 minutes a day to go back, and it's just focused on do code better, something like that. It's not writing code necessarily as much as it is exploring, like researching how do I do that? What are best practices and things of that nature. And so I think that's where I want to go because it's actually turned out to be really interesting. It's been a great way for me to actually a great way for me to add a couple of, in a sense, add a couple of skills or keep some skills from getting too rusty because I'm going to recommend a tool as part of this that I think actually that may end up being the actual challenge. It's a place called codesignal.com. And I'll tell a little bit of story about how I ran into that. But I think that'll be a good one for us. Any questions or anything? Because I talked about it. Any questions before we dive into it?
I just want to make sure I stay in the lane of this discussion. So we're discussing coding skills specifically, like coding standards, libraries, SDKs, best practices, stay away from soft skills, interviews, business skills, keep it to the code.
100%. Yeah, because this is stuff that like we do all the time, and it's easy for us to say, "Hey, we do it all the time." And we're fine at it, and then we're not. Our skills are aged and out. We don't want to be that person that was the COBOL programmer back, that had been writing code for 40 years, and then suddenly new languages showed up, and they were like, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that. I can't handle that stuff." We want to be constantly learning and growing. Three, two, one. Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season where we are building better habits, but you may say, that's not what I saw. That's right. You saw building better developers, developer. That's what we are. We're a podcast, a website, videos, all that kind of goodness, because we are working towards building better developers this season. How do we take these developers that we're talking to? Yes, that means you, and build habits. How do we walk through habits? How have we done it? How do we recommend other people do it? And as a community, how do we work to make ourselves better? With each of these episodes, there is going to be homework. There's going to be an action item at the end. There's going to be we'll call it a challenge if that helps. If it helps us gamify it, then so be it. That's what we're looking for. Now, before we get into it, my name is Rob Broadhead. I am one of the founders of Developreneur, Building Better Developers, also a founder of RB Consulting, where we really focus on helping companies use technology better. A lot of time, if your company's in a situation where they're like, what do I really have and how much do we use it? That's a perfect time for us to step in and say, let us help you with that. Let's look at what is it you have. What is the technology that you have? What is the sprawl maybe that you have of all these applications and all these users and all these different things they use? And how do we find ways to clean that stuff up through integration, simplification, automation, find ways to make you leverage that better, help you leverage that better, and also cut out the crap that you don't need. Remove the duplicate kinds of applications and features and functions and things like that. Streamline stuff so that you go from being like that big, ugly Homer Simpson car that's got everything in the world on it to like an F1 racer that is stripped down to doing the thing that it does best. Good things and bad things. As a good thing, I have gone through this week and I've dived into one of these kinds of projects. And the good thing was it took a while because it's a big company. It's like, it seems small, but you guys, if you're a developer, I finally got access to code repositories, so I can actually look at code. I was able to see a bunch of different stuff, and I finally now have the permission so I can actually go look at the code. And instead of guessing my way into stuff and saying, do you do this? Did you ever think of that? Do you try this? How is this set up? I can actually go look at it and say, hey, you did that great. Or, hey, why don't you take a look at it and do it better? Bad thing. As a bad thing, gosh, now I don't have, I had a whole lot of bad stuff the last time I was thinking about it. And this time I'm trying to think of bad things. Um, a bad thing is it is getting towards the end of the month in the fall times that we have here. And the back and forth of the weather can make it very difficult for those of us that have allergies and sinuses and things like that. And so my bad thing, which is sort of combined with good. Yesterday, I think I went through an entire box of Kleenex because I was just blowing my nose, blowing my nose, blowing my nose, blowing my nose. So the good thing is I had extra boxes of Kleenex. The bad thing is I had to utilize an entire box, I'm pretty sure, yesterday. Someone who actually is very simpatico with that whole thing on the other side is going to introduce himself. Michael, go for it.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Developer Building Better Developers. I'm also the founder of Envision QA. If you are a business, clinician, small independent business looking for help with your software, it's either custom software, it's not working, you need help supporting it, we're your go-to company. If you have multiple tools that you're paying for that don't just quite cut it, we will also help you by building or assessing what you have, identifying areas of improvement, and we can help kind of guide you on the path to getting the right tools for what you need, be it custom or purchased. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, we're finally getting rain. It has been weeks since we've had rain here, and oh my God, it is like a dust bowl. So good thing. Bad thing, because of the Dust Bowl, like Rob said, my allergies have been hell this month. I'm actually don't know if I want to wish for winter yet because I don't like the cold, but hey, at least my allergies will get better at some point. So,
So this episode, well, first, in our prior episode, I just want to like poke you a little bit. If you weren't doing a couple episodes back, if you haven't tried the 7 days of Pomodoros, one Pomodoro a day, I highly recommend it. It worked out very well for me. There's a lot of cool stuff I learned while doing that. Also, if you have not looked at an automation, if you've not spent some time trying to figure out where you can automate your life and make some improvements, highly recommend that you take a look at that and do that and do it repeatedly. Do it for a week, do it for the next week, do it for the next week, because you will find that your life will get much easier as you dive into 4, 5, 6, 7, a dozen new automations that you've built for those things that you used to do and it used to drive you nuts. This episode, we're going to look at coding skills. Now, you're probably saying, this is building better developers, even if it is habits this season. It's building better developers. I'm a developer. I know how to code. I code every day. Yes, you do. But you don't learn new ways to code every day. You don't necessarily look at what's out there. What are some new best practices? What are some new versions? What are some of the things that now that you're in version 2 of your environment as opposed to version 1, now that version 2 is available, there may be some improvements that allow you to take things you used to do in version 1 and do them better in version 2. Now, it could be that they still work, which is very often the case. Java, I'm looking at you. Stuff works forever. It's like it can be deprecated for version after version after version. So the stuff you used to do still works, but it is not the best or the most efficient way to do it. It also may not be the best standard or practice that's being used right now. So what I want to talk about is how do we find ways to poke ourselves to become better at developing as a developer on a regular basis. Now, of course, daily habits are a great way to do it. So one of the things we can do is we can go out and we can look at one of the things to do is we can read blogs or listen to podcasts or things like that and sort of keep an eye on, keep an ear out for where is there something new. One of the things we used to do in our mentor classes way back is it was, especially when we met every week, one of the things was we had a nugget. Everybody basically would, not every time, but the idea was everybody would contribute a nugget, something that they ran into that week, a new site, a new tool, a new way to use a tool, those kinds of things. if you had listened, if you were following through those, you would have gotten some of that. There are a lot of podcasts out there that are in that sense where they have regular tools that they will recommend. They have these things that they bring up. They have topics that they cover that will, at least if they don't go into it, give you ideas of what are some things I should be looking at. What are some things that I'm like, oh, I don't know that I know that well. Maybe I should spend some time on it. So it could be reading a blog article. It could be listening to a specific podcast or listening to a podcast. It could be going out to the vendor site for whatever that tool is or those tools are that you use and just keep an eye out for like news going on. Listening, hang out in like forums and discussions and community groups, user groups even that are related to those technologies. One of the things I want to throw out there that I stumbled across is a place called codesignal.com, codesignal.com. I actually was introduced to it because they have a pretty cool technology interviewing vetting type of service they provide where it's basically it is a web-based development environment. They give you programming environment actually is that they give you a programming problem and then you have an interpreter there. Basically you have a place which you can write your code and you have a button so you can run your code and see the output. So it is its own little self-contained IDE environment. IDE, and it also has a lot of different programming languages that it supports as part of that. So if you're coming in and doing a C# interview, they can go out there, the interviewer can go out there and say, hey, take a look at this. They can assign you, give you like a 1 week to get this done. You go out, you fill out the problem, you solve it, you promote it out to them or whatever, you publish it out to them. Great. The other thing this site does is that they have a way as a developer that you can learn technology. They have tutorial classes that utilize the same IDE and will walk you through a wide variety of topics. Now, the nice thing about something like this, and this is along the same lines in a sense of like your Udemy's and your LinkedIn education and some of those kinds of places that are out there, is that if you have one of these subscriptions or if you're utilizing one of these tutorial training sites, you can go out and a lot of times very regularly for a low cost or maybe even free, look at classes, take a class of some sort. Now you don't have to do it all in a day. You can take this and you can do it piecemeal where you're just like, I'm going to take a class on X, whatever that is. For example, I was like, you know what? I want to spend a little more time playing around with machine learning and data analytics. So I found a little series that was talking about machine learning and data analytics and using Python and some things like that. I'm like, oh, this is a fun little thing. I'm going to play around with this for a while. It's just sort of see what I know and better yet, what don't I know? Where are there gaps? What are the things that I can go in? And since I'm doing it in a formal setting, there may be things that now I'm going to be introduced to that I never had to deal with because I was never asked that question. So I didn't have to go research it. Something like that is a great way to spend 15 minutes a day or even 5 or 10 minutes a day doing this thing, especially if it's directed like a tutorial or training or something about, online training, those kinds of things, because it helps you keep some of those skills maybe fresh and also can teach you some new stuff along the way. It will help you be a better developer because now you're not just relying on your developer skills from yesterday. It is literally you going into each day saying, I'm going to learn something new. Now, you can do this in a lot of areas, but I think the ones that are the most danger to us are things like this, where we do it every day. And so it is easy for us to fall into the trap to say that I'm learning something new every day because I do this every day. But there is a reason people refer to a developer that has 1 year of experience 10 times being different from a developer that has 10 years of experience. We all know that there's a way for us to get into a rut where we're solving the same problems the same way, using the same tools day in and day out. And we could almost, flash back to a prior episode, automate the stuff that we did. So those are a couple of key areas that I want to just touch on. But now I'm going to let Michael sort of, give me your feedback and then maybe some of the areas that you want to talk about and how do you become a better developer looking specifically at those developer skills.
So I'll start out with kind of some of the coding standards and best practices. So one of the things as developers, like Rob said, we could get into that rut of doing the same thing again and again and again over time. And what I like to do, especially flashback a couple episodes ago, is do a kitchen sink app. And what I do with that is it's the kitchen sink app isn't just for the actual application, the functionality of the application. I actually use the kitchen sink apps for multiple purposes. Yes, it is to help give me a code template, kind of here's how I did something, here's best practice. But what I also like using the kitchen sink apps for are things like Rob mentioned, are using IDEs. So one of the biggest things as a developer that I've seen over the years again and again is especially developers coming out of college, they're taught one particular framework or one particular tool, like IntelliJ, Visual Code, or just text editors and compilers. When they get into the business world, they again learn whatever that business is using. The problem is the next company you go work for may not use those tools. So you need to constantly learn what else is out there, diverse your skills, so to speak, in multiple platforms, not just necessarily languages, but the tools that you use. So if you use Eclipse, maybe check out IntelliJ, load that kitchen sink app, see if you can get it to work, see where all the debuggers are, all the compilers, how do you configure it, load it again into like Visual Code or some different IDEs, play around with that. So if you actually did the challenge for the kitchen sink app, you've already got this tool. So now just start going out and just, this is an idea. You can go play with different IDEs. The other thing that is challenging, and like Rob mentioned, Java is a great example of this. Java 8 for a lot of people is still the only version of Java that's out there. That's all they know. That's all they've been doing for almost 20 years now. The thing is that we're now in Java 22. Java changed their release program. So now there's new versions of the language coming out every 6 months, every other year. And there are new changes, more enhancements, more security features coming out with every iteration. It behooves you to keep track of where it is that the language that you're using is going. Not just best practices, but what are the new tools and libraries being introduced? What are being deprecated? If a security file is deprecated, you probably need to not just deprecate it, but immediately figure out what it is that it's being replaced with, because that is potentially a security hole in your application. You don't want to open up your systems to hackers. So this is just kind of another little thing about improving your core skills that is a life benefit to protect yourself and your software. The other thing I kind of wanted to touch on, again, was that coding standards and best practices. So the other cool thing about that kitchen sink app is, if you try to do best practices, so you write one way that you think is best practice today, well, 6 months from now, pull it back up. Okay, what has changed? Or as you have been working, did you do something different that is now a better practice that you need to update your kitchen sink app or keep track of? So as you're going through the process of your daily jobs, if you see something that is new or you don't quite understand, take 15, 20 minutes, go look it up, go Google it, or write it down and look it up tomorrow. One of the key things that personally I try to do every single day, and this is a habit I've been doing for many years now, is every single day I want to learn one thing new that I did not know yesterday. I don't care if it's a language, I don't care if it's best practice, but I always start out by looking at what it is that I'm doing, what is there that I can add, improve, or learn to help my current situation or to get me to that next project, that next step in my career. So these core skills are not just about improving your technology skills, but they can also benefit your coding, but they can improve your kind of step through your progress to that next goal in your career.
So our challenge for this week ahead is, like Michael just alluded to, pick something new every day. You're going to learn something new every day. Now, the challenge for this, I think, in order to make it easier to step into this habit, is on the first day, or actually probably before you get into the first day, even spend a little bit of extra time in that first day and pick something that you need to learn more about. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be, for example, I want to learn about the latest version of the language that's out there that I'm using right now. Or I want to learn more about the underlying mechanics of a template, of a framework that I'm using. For example, like maybe I used Hibernate all the time. I'm going to spend some time learning what SQL is and how it would do the things that the tool does for me. Or look at what is your language du jour, your language of choice, maybe even right now, the ones you're in the most, and just spend time looking at best practices. Not necessarily, although it could be very useful if your company has, if your organization has coding standards, is make sure that you're going back and taking a look at those coding standards. Spend a little time every day, but also like maybe why would that matter? Why would that be useful? Is get a little bit more into it so you're not just, oh, this is why we do, this is what we do, but so you have a little bit of an idea of why do we do that. Do that every day and just like mark out time, 10 to 15 minutes every day for the next week that your goal is I'm going to learn a little bit more, and give yourself in this case, it's like give yourself a sort of a stretch goal of the week and say, all right, I want to learn, for example, I'm going to learn more about the current version of this language. So what you can do is each day say, hey, I'm going to go out to maybe the vendor site and they've got a whole bunch of information, but I'm going to read. I'm going to take a look at what's the features that got added in this version. I'm going to look at maybe go search for some articles on how does this change from the prior version, or what are some benefits I can take advantage of in the new version. Maybe you go search, maybe part of this, you go search for a podcast or two that you're going to listen to now for a while that are based on, they talk about that topic, or that's what their focus is, or a site where you're going to read daily blogs or something along those lines. Or maybe you're just going to like a TechCrunch or one of those kinds of places. I'm assuming that still exists. You're going to one of those places and you're just going to, that's going to be your search topic. And you're just going to start your day and spend that 10 to 15 minutes reading an article on that topic. What is the latest article on that topic? Do that every day. And then when you get to the end of the week, hopefully you'll be able to look back and say, wow, I've really progressed in what I know about that topic, whatever that chosen topic is. Now, this again, I think it's really important for you to do this in the development world. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly the development stuff you're working on. So if let's say you're a middle tier developer, maybe what you do is you're going to go spend the next week and I'm going to have 7 questions I'm going to answer of how do I do this in HTML and JavaScript, or how do I do this using in a graphical environment that is the one that is the front end to the work that I do. If you're a front end developer, maybe it is how do I create an API? How do I create an API call? Or how do I create a database? Or how do I actually work with a database other than through the means that you have right now? These are all great ways. Asking those questions of like, how does this actually work? Why does it work? Those kinds of things are going to help you get a deeper knowledge of what you use. And it's actually, I think, a lot of times going to make you utilize that better, because now you understand the why a little bit more and you're not just using it blindly. You actually understand why you're doing this, and it will help you moving forward. That being said, it's time for us to wrap this one up. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, particularly on the challenges that we've given you, shoot us an email at info@developreneur.com. You can also leave us contacts. We've got comments, and we have a contact form on developreneur.com. You can leave comments and feedback out on YouTube at the Developreneur channel. Send us stuff on X at Developreneur. We have a Facebook page. The Developreneur page is out there. I think we do. I forget for sure. We have one out in LinkedIn or Facebook. I am not our social media person, so check around, search Developreneur, and if you find it, great. Let me know. It may be a site that we forgot we had. Or maybe not that bad, but that being said, we love your feedback. Love to hear from you. We'd love to know where we can help you be better. So, as always, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Bonus material. This time I wrote it down so I would not forget it. One of the things that you can do that I think is really good in pushing yourself this way is create for yourself your own coding standards and best practices. Try to just sort of document what are the things that I do, not me, but you in my shoes. You say to yourself, what is it that I do on a regular basis? How do I name functions? How do I name variables? How do I format comments? How do I, what is sort of my mental template for comments when I commit code? What are the steps I typically take when I am using version control, and how do I branch stuff, and when do I merge, and when do I commit? What are some standards I use when I'm writing a SQL query? Or what are some of the things I do to make sure my code is secure? Those kinds of standards and best practices is you build that document, but then with each of those is question, is this really a best practice or a good standard to have? And maybe go do a little search for each of your, either your areas or some of your specifics, and go Google that. Maybe ask like a chat GP or something like that, or ask a search engine and see what kind of information you get back, because you will likely get some sort of conversation somewhere about that. Trust me, go look at just naming standards. Camel case versus using underscores between words versus the Polish, Hungarian notation and all that kind of stuff. You will find a lot of conversations about that, and you will find this is why we do, and maybe it's this is why, but this is what is typical for this language, or this is what is typical for this environment, because those kinds of things are going to help you be a better developer, because it's going to help you take your standards, your habits, and slide those in and conform those into what are the accepted habits within that culture or that environment. Bonus material from you, Mike.
So, on top of what you just said there, I want to just add one additional thing within software languages. Look at the release notes of whatever language you use the most, be it Java, C Sharp, Python, whatever. One of the coolest things I've learned, especially from Java, since they've really gotten into these iterative cycles, is they are constantly adding new primitives, new keywords, new formatting tools to the language that makes our life so much better. So if you're stuck, like you mentioned, formatting SQL, in Java, the old way of formatting SQL, you had to do all these appenders. It looked awful. Strings before were very cumbersome, very hard to use. Now they have the Python notation or some of the other notations where it's like 3 quotes, there's your SQL, 3 quotes. It doesn't reformat your code. So your SQL is the uniform and formatted. Little things like that if you don't know, could save you so much time and headache and make the code so much readable. These are just little things that if you don't know, you don't know. But take this challenge seriously, and you might learn these things, and you might be like, holy crap, I didn't know that. Wow, this is so much fun. This can be a journey, a learning experience, and a good habit to pick up, but it can also be fun.
100% agree on all of those areas, and that is an excellent piece of bonus material. There is just like it really, between the IDEs and languages and some of those things and all the automation tools out there, it is very helpful to spend some time and learn what is out there to help you be better. And it is very easy for you to get in that rut and not realize that there are things that you do manually that you don't have to do at all. I will briefly refer to, there was a developer I worked with. This is many years ago. He may have grown out of this habit, but it wasn't so long ago that his world was VI. He wrote all his code in VI. He had all sorts of headaches dealing with everybody else because everything had to be a specific format. And when it got reformatted, he had to go in and basically do these macros to go reformat a bunch of stuff. And he got all sorts of ticked off because he had to go reformat stuff. Whereas all the rest of us use this really cool IDE called Eclipse that would just auto format stuff for us. So we didn't care. We could just go one button and it's all formatted and we can read it well and all that kind of stuff. And so we had an IDE, a full integrated development environment that did all of this stuff for us. And he insisted, because that was what he knew, that he was going to stick with the VI world. And he said, he would claim, he would swear up and down that he was easily as productive, if not more productive than any other developer that was using an IDE. I would call BS on that and did several times and said, look, dude, try the new tools. So let's not be Luddites. Let's make sure that we're keeping up with some of the new tools out there and that we're finding ways to leverage them. And if you don't like it, if it goes against your style or something like that, that's okay, but at least know it's out there. And this allows you to have an educated response to that. And it's like, I like, for example, certain IDEs. Maybe I like this older IDE or this less popular IDE because it gives me A, B, and C, because I tried this other more popular IDE and it didn't work for me. And so that's okay, but try it. You might like it, you might not, but at least then you have a reason why you didn't. Don't get out there and try us and not like us. If you try us and you don't like us, you got problems. Like, I'm talking serious mental problems. Okay, maybe not like that, but I would love for you guys to give us some comments, particularly those of you that are out here in the video space, out in the YouTube space, because you guys see this a little different. You get some extra information. There's some things that we do that are little bonus as this with each of our episodes. So I would love to hear back from you guys. If it's simple things like, yeah, maybe it is. It's like, Rob, you should grow a beard. Michael, you should shave your face. Rob, wear a different hat. Whatever it is, those things, maybe we're going to take those with a grain of salt, but those also are things that we're going to incorporate in some way, form, or fashion. If you're like, you guys look so much better if you had big white wigs on, we'll consider that. I'm not going to say we're going to go with it, but hey, we are open to suggestions and we'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to get feedback so that we can make sure that we're producing something that helps you, that we have value for the time that you invest. And I want to just, as always, they're always thankful for it, but I want to just pause for a second and thank you guys for the time that you spend, for what you have invested in listening to us and sharing with us on this journey to become better developers and to build better habits. I follow this up with go build better habits. Take these challenges and don't just like go, oh yeah, that was a great idea. Actually utilize it, because these will help. Some of them won't. I will give you that right now. There's gonna be some things you're like, that just didn't really work for me, but some of them will. And those that do will be the kinds of things that will help you become a better developer. And I say that because Michael and I have done both of this. We've tried lots and lots of stuff over the years, and there's stuff that we explicitly are like, that doesn't work for me. Some works for me, doesn't work for him, and vice versa. But then there's also things where like, this is why we keep doing this kind of stuff, because we do stumble across things that help us immensely and help take us to that next level. And that's what we want for you. We want the entire developer community to continue to grow and to continue to take those steps forward. That being said, it's time for us to go out there and grow and take our steps and do all of those things moving forward. We will see you next time. Back with more. We're just getting started in the seasons. We've got a lot ahead of us, lots of good habits to build. So go out there, build a couple of habits, have yourself a great day.